Could this possibly be contradicting Dave's other baby steps? Because there are other ways. Hey guys, how's it going, and thanks for coming. I'm Nick, and this is Real Life Money, where we talk about real life and money, because you know schools aren't. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos, so let's get started. So in this video, we're going over if Dave Ramsey's baby steps are still working today in 2019. So first off, Dave Ramsey, I have a lot of respect for. This is not going to be a bashing session. I don't have a picture of Dave Ramsey on the wall with darts thrown at it. I respect the guy. He has helped millions of people, and which is incredible, and actually one of the main reasons why I started my own channel. Now, Dave's been doing this for years, decades, but does it still apply today? If you don't know who Dave Ramsey is, you need to stop lying to yourself and check him out. He's an older guy from the South who has a bunch of cars and guns and not the nicest person all the time. It's for a reason. Like he tells you if you're stupid. That's not nice all the time, but I agree with that. I'm not the nicest person all the time, because if you do something stupid, you should know. So if you are watching this video, you're probably or around the area of the millennial generation, and Dave himself even says that there are like two types of millennials. They're either amazing, very hardworking, or they suck. There's like no middle ground. So definitely people could be questioning his ways, since they are kind of like older fashioned. He tells you to cut up credit cards when, of course, we got to use credit cards to buy our mochaccino lattes. Also limit your vacations, your cars, and live on rice and beans until you could actually support yourself and be debt free. So you can't deny that this works. It's all in the numbers, essentially. If you live on less, then, you know, you could create something for yourself. But is it always practical, and are there better ways? So the main baby steps that Dave goes through, essentially, first you're saving up $1,000 for an emergency fund, then you're tackling your debt, then eventually you save up more for maybe like 3 to 6 months of emergency expenses, then you go for your house, then you eventually save for retirement, you build your wealth, and you could also tithe along with that. Now, tackling these ideas, the first is saving $1,000. Personally, I don't think $1,000 is a lot of money anymore. Yeah, it is something, but I would actually like a stronger financial backbone. I mean, he started this like decades ago, and back then $1,000 was actually a good amount of money. Now you could blow that in a week. Not going out to bars and stuff like that, but things are more expensive. So for me personally, I would actually want to bump that up to like 1 month's worth of expenses. Now, if your expenses are $1,000, then save $1,000. However, if you're spending, you know, $2,000-$3,000 per month, I would want to have that. It just makes you feel better, more confident and powerful, because you have 1 whole month to not worry. Now, the next idea of tackling debt, which I completely agree with. Debt is literally killing us. We have $1.5 trillion in student loans. We have like $1 trillion in credit cards. There's a loads amount of debt out there. And I wouldn't doubt if this actually contributes to a huge problem in the near future. Something is bound to happen. However, he tells us to cut up our credit cards. And is that actually the best? Because if we do this, I mean, there are other ways, but then we're not working on our credit score. He doesn't care or even look at credit scores, because that essentially tells everyone else if you're a good borrower. Well, if you don't have to borrow, then you don't have to worry about that. It makes sense. Pay cash for houses, and it is possible. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. However, I mean, for me personally, I do live in New York. House prices are up there. It's still possible. You can do that. And I'm really starting to question if New York's even worth it. But if you are going for a mortgage, if you don't have a score, if you're not working at it, these banks and these mortgage companies look at your credit score for you to actually qualify. There are other ways that other people look at your credit score as well, even if you're going for a job. Now, yes, there is a huge amount of people that misuse their credit cards. It's actually horrible. And you've probably heard of the commercials out there that say spending more means saving more. That frustrates a lot. It frustrates me a lot because that's, if you're spending more, you're spending more. You're not saving anything. So we do have to be wise about it. So if we are wise about our credit score and making sure we're paying our credit cards on time to actually boost our credit score, and understanding that cash back from a credit card is not going to make us rich. It's like a few extra bucks, great. Do not make yourself like spend more, urging yourself to, get more cash back. That's dumb. So if we actually work on our credit score, we are able to get a better rate on our mortgages, let's say. You could get maybe like, even if you save 1% because you have a better credit score, 1% on $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 house could cost you thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars over time. So going along with this idea of credit cards and debt, he suggests to go for a debt snowball approach, which I actually agree with. Now here's the thing. There are two different ways. There's the debt snowball, which means that you're tackling your smallest debts first, and then you go up the ladder to your largest debts on purely amount. The other one is the debt avalanche effect. You go for the highest interest rate possible. You pay that off first. Because that's the highest interest rate, you're going to be saving more money. Now, mathematically, yes, this is correct. However, if you haven't realized, human beings are very, very emotional creatures. It is essentially not a math problem. If it was a math problem, we wouldn't be in debt to begin with. That's what Dave says. I completely agree with that. So it's actually not a math issue. It's a behavioral issue. What people do is they go for the easier things and more convenient things first. So when we take out that smaller debt, let's say if something's $1,000, you pay that off, you only have a few other things left after that. You're just paying them down so you don't have to worry about all this stuff. You just keep it super simple. And along with that, when you pay off the smaller one, you don't have those payments anymore. So now you take those payments and put it to the next debt. And I largely agree with that. It essentially gives us faith toward that, because when you could be paying something for a long time, it might not feel like you're doing anything. When you're paying things off, it just gives you more momentum. So that we're sticking with Dave with. However, piggybacking off of the debt idea is going for mortgages. Now, Dave suggests to pay cash for a house. However, if you do not do that, if you're going for a mortgage, you always, without exceptions, no questions, always go for a 15-year mortgage over a 30-year mortgage. Is that actually better? Now, I understand why he's saying to go for a 15-year mortgage for multiple reasons. If you're going for a 15, it urges you to go for a house that you could actually afford. Let's say the difference between a 15-year and a 30-year, let's say 15 years, $2,000 a month, versus a 30-year, which is $1,000 a month. The difference is essentially you're doubling your payments. That's why the amount of time is half. So you're going for something that you can afford. Instead of going for a 30-year, you're going for, let's say, $1,000. You're like, hey, I could afford $1,000. Now I could go for like $1,500 because I could afford that. This requires a little common sense. Unfortunately, it's not that common anymore. However, let's take that difference, right? That $1,000, let's say that difference of 30-year of $1,000 or 15-year of $2,000. So let's say if you go for the 30-year, now you have that $1,000 freed up. Dave is suggesting, like, if you're going for that 15, you're essentially using that $1,000 for the house. Is this a contradiction? Because essentially you're using that $1,000 for the house and not smaller debts first, which is part of the baby step. So the way that I'm thinking of it, I would rather put that $1,000 toward debt, smaller debts, and you use the debt snowball like he actually preaches. So you take out that smaller debt, you rise up, and then you could put that amount when all your debts are wiped out, then you just put it toward the 30-year mortgage, and you essentially pay it like it is a 15-year mortgage. I know this could bring a lot of questions, a lot of concerns, a lot of issues. Some people love the 30, some people love the 15. It's really up to you. For me personally, I think that different amounts eventually goes toward that idea of that debt snowball, and I think that could be more beneficial. Since you have that 30-year, you have that more wiggle room on your payments. So you're not like pressuring to make that higher 15-year payment. So that's with mortgages. And the next thing that Dave would suggest anyone to do is tithing. Now, you don't have to be religious to do that. You could always be charitable in, a non-religious way, and that's great. Giving is a great thing. However, how I disagree with this is I believe that we should help ourselves first, because if we can't help ourselves, then it's more difficult to help others. If we get ourselves more stable, then we have unlimited possibilities to help more people. One video out there by Prince E, or Prince EA, great guy, definitely recommend checking his channel out. He has like millions of followers, but he brought up a good concept. When you're in a plane and the oxygen comes down, he says that you have to help yourself first before helping others. If you die, then you can't help others. So that's why I would recommend helping ourselves before we go out and help others. Now, I'm not saying to give. Maybe along the way, if you want to donate, $20, $100, but if you're looking at like the average salary of $50,000, 10% of that is $5,000. That means donating $5,000 a year. That's kind of a lot that we need to get out of debt so later we can help. Again, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying giving is bad. It's actually very good. It makes you feel good as well as a human being. Like, donate $20 for puppies. I'm going to donate $20 for puppies. Mostly because I love puppies more than humans. If you would donate to puppies as well, thumbs up. That's besides the point. And I believe the last thing that Dave really doesn't talk about, of course, like he always mentions like all these things to do and the mindset to have, but it's not essentially in the baby steps themselves. I've been watching his radio show and the different videos he has for like years, and people constantly call in, like 90% of the time, he essentially reiterates the baby steps to them. They are laid out, and sometimes people don't really follow it. So essentially, I feel like they don't understand why the baby steps are the way they are. So we have to teach people how to think and not tell them, hey, do this. You got to understand why. Now, this isn't going to make a baby step 8 or anything, and it's difficult to teach that. However, we have to understand why we're doing these things, why we're actually paying down our debt, why we certain mortgages, why we're tithing or donating or building our wealth. There are reasons for each one of these. And at the same time, every single person is different. Just because you do something a certain way, you want to go for a 30 rather than a 15 mortgage, everyone is different. You can do each way a correct way. Coming to the conclusion, in the words of Dave Ramsey, you have to live like no one else now, so later on, you could live like nobody else. We just have to be wise about it, guys, and I feel like we can give ourselves a little bit more wiggle room to adapt to what we actually want in life. I feel like we're all essentially going for that end goal of happiness, and I hope that we all get there. So if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave them down below. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. What do you think of Dave Ramsey's baby steps? Do you follow them? Do you think they should have certain adjustments? Let me know. So thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see ya in the next one.